and welcome back to CQ, the AWS Certification Quiz Show, where I am joined today for episode 3 of season 2 by Bikram Bora. Bikram, tell us a bit about what you do here at AWS.
Hey MJ, how's it going? I'm a solutions architect here at AWS, so I help our customers build well-architected solutions. I help them ensure that they're secure, cost-effective, and then they scale effectively, right? It's a really exciting role because you get to interact with customers in different industry segments every single day. So yeah,
awesome. We had a few of your team on now, so you've got a pretty big shoes to fill, Bikram.
I do, absolutely.
Tried to get him on all of season 1.
Yep.
You're finally here. Tell us where you've brought us to today.
So today we're at in Northeast India, in Assam, which is the state where I'm from, and this is the Ronghor. This is where kings used to have festivities and celebrate. And we're celebrating the 3rd episode of season 2 of the CQ show today, so that's why I decided to bring you all here. So,
I love it. Well, thank you for bringing me here. I'm loving it. Bikram, you actually have a number of certs, right?
Yes.
5?
Yep. I have 5 certs.
Tell us a bit about that journey.
So starting off, so firstly I'll cover up which ones I have. I've got the cloud practitioner, I've got all of the 3 associates, and I've got the SA Pro exam as well, right? I've got that.
So you definitely got to get DevOps.
I do have to get
on
DevOps
that
Pro,
list
and I'm
finish.
excited. Yes, I want that badge of the profile, right? Before we move on to the specialties. But they've been really, they've really helped me gain a broader understanding and appreciation for the AWS platform and of the internet in general. Speaking about my personal background, I've primarily come from a dev background, right? I've built software, I've been hands down in code and just building different things and connecting different APIs. And then that really gives you a lot of depth, but it's quite exciting to then be able to look at the global picture and the big picture and go and say, hey, now that I've learned about networking and compute and storage and develops this broader picture, and then you just tend to gain like an insight as to what else the people of the world out there are building and what else the customers are building that are quite exciting services for everybody. Yeah.
It sounds like you're going to have a nice tip of the day for us later in the show, Bikram, on the back of that.
I will try, yes, yeah.
So we've been asking all of our season 2 guests what 2020 is shaping up like for them.
Yep.
How does it look for you? What's going on?
Oh, it's always an exciting day at AWS, right? And it's an exciting year for me and for our team going forward. So we're going to have a Sydney Summit end of next month, 30th of March, 1st of April, 2nd of April.
And I'll get producer John to put the registration link in the chat for all of you.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm presenting at Sydney Summit this year.
Nice, good. Pleased to hear it.
I'll be presenting all about how you do testing, how you do CI/CD, how you build applications, and how you do load testing. And I'm calling it the journey of a line of code, where you go from a developer's laptop right through to production. And A/B testing. So that's what I'm presenting on. So that's a plug for me. Please come attend my session.
It. What was it? The journey of a line of code.
The journey of a line of code.
Watch out for Bikram at Sydney Summit this year.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Unrelated.
Yes.
Are you ready for the show?
I'm absolutely ready for the show. I'm feeling pumped. Yeah, we get to go through questions today.
I did ask John to actually make the questions a bit more difficult after the first 2 episodes.
Oh, I'm feeling the pressure now. The heat is on. The heat is on.
Not to put any pressure on you, Bikram, but should we jump into question 1? We've got a bit of storage performance coming up.
Awesome.
Let's do it. All right, Bikram, you are migrating a scientific application to run on Amazon EC2. The application frequently reads and writes multiple terabytes of temporary data to from the disk. What type of storage can provide the highest performance random I/O?
Cool. So let's dissect the question a little bit before we move into any of the answers, right? And as with many of these questions, always keep your ears and eyes out looking for keywords that'll help you narrow down the answers. So as we start off, it says you are migrating. So there's clearly an application running somewhere on premises, off cloud, somewhere that we're moving into the AWS cloud, right? It's a scientific application, which means it's usually really sensitive, and it's usually high performance, which means which is where then the same theme comes through when we're talking about the high I/O. And we're running it on Amazon EC2, so it is a virtual machine, VM-based application. And it says it frequently reads and writes data, which means storage and I/O is going to be very important for this app, right? So high performance compute, it's AWS we have a lot of instance sizes on Amazon EC2 Elastic Compute Cloud. So if you look at if you look at the broader spectrum, you can go from like a small, tiny T3 instance to the largest GPU instances, which have NVIDIA graphics in them, and it's quite common for our customers to they start off usually with the T3 as they're dipping their toe in the water, and as they're moving ahead, they realize that hey, we can use larger instances to really reduce our cost and our compute time, right? Because some of these scientific applications, they might be doing genomic research or cancer research, and the outcome and like a month or a year's acceleration in discovering the right protein or the outcome can have huge impact for the human population in general, right?
Very relevant right now.
All right, going back into the question, reads and writes multiple terabytes of temporary data to disk, right? So the keyword temporary here gives us an indication that this data is ephemeral. So just to give you context, usually when you're building out application, there will be certain types of data which are critical to the application running. So let's say you're running something on your desktop and it shuts down, and we come back in. Some of the data will always be there, whereas some of the data will be in cache, right? So the temporary data gives us an indication that it's ephemeral. So we've dissected the question. We're migrating scientific application from to run on Amazon EC2. Application frequently reads and writes temporary data to disk, right? So we've got a good picture of what we're going in here. What type of storage can provide the highest performance for random I/O, right? Now the random keyword is very important here because that means that there's no definitive pattern for what type of input-output operations we're looking at. There's no we can't leverage things like cache, or we can't leverage things like where we predetermine some sort of pattern, right? Going into the options themselves, so the first one is Amazon EFS in max I/O performance mode. So firstly, what is Amazon EFS, right? So network storage is big in the cloud because all forms of storage in the cloud are network-based, right? Apart from some, which we'll talk about later, right? So EFS is a NFS-based store, which allows a Linux EC2 instance or Elastic Compute Cloud instance to share storage across multiple instances. What that means is, let's say you're running a workload like WordPress, you're running a workload like Magento, which needs some sort of shared configuration files or shared files that they need to work with. That's true for as a new instance comes online, it needs to read the config from somewhere so that it can provision itself. So EFS really works well in those scenarios, right? And in max I/O performance mode, you're really enhancing that speed of EFS. So this is from a feasibility perspective. So I like to do this where I look at which options are actually feasible or buildable in the AWS cloud, right? Because that's an easy way for you to eliminate answers as you're going through the answers there.
So number one is feasible.
It's definitely feasible, right? So we can park it for a second and look at the other instance types, right? So instance store with NVMe solid state drives. So instance store, what is instance store firstly? This is a type of storage which is present on many types of EC2 instances, and it's actually completely free for a lot of customers, right? So instance store is the difference between that and most other types of storage in AWS. So if you look at S3, if you look at EFS, or if you look at EBS, which is the volume storage, all of these are network-based, right?
Yep.
So with network-based storage, we have some form of latency because a network call has to be made and then a network call has to come back, right? But with instance store, that's one exception to the rule where the storage is pretty much on the compute itself.
Yeah, directly attached. Directly attached,
yes. So there's pros and cons to how you would use that, right? The benefit, absolutely, is you get like sub-millisecond latency in your input-output. But how that sort of impacts you is if the instance were to change, if you were to change a host, if you were to reboot the instance stored is wiped. And that's obviously, and that's because, let's say another customer was using the same instance, instance store is cleaned up purely because of data privacy and security.
So contents are lost in that instance.
Yes. Yep. So if you reboot the instance, you lose the content, right?
Okay.
But that is by design. That's what it's intended for, right? So with EC2 Instance Store, we've got direct attached compute. That's looking good. So we know we can write multiple terabytes of temporary data.
Yep.
So we can do the temporary data definitely in there. We can do, because as I said, if it's ephemeral, so if the instance reboots, we'll lose it. So we're safe there. And NVMe solid state drives. So solid state drives so speaking of like storage in general, there's a couple of different types of storage on the AWS platform. You can go from general purpose hard drives to magnetic storage, and SSDs are usually the fastest type, right? And even like consumer-based laptops are nowadays mostly moving to SSD drives because they're just lightning fast. You can even use them to share RAM. So NVMe solid state drives used with Instance Store will really give you extremely accelerated performance in this case, right?
So this is looking like a good answer.
This is looking like a very good candidate. And as I said, we're safe because this is temporary data from disk, right?
Most people on the poll, Bikram, going for number 2 at the minute, but
not
not everyone.
All right.
So let's look at 3 and 4.
All right. Let's look at 3 and 4. So we've got Amazon S3 using an Amazon EC2 instance that has an elastic fabric adapter. So this is quite a few services that are glued together here. So let's dive in, right? Let's look at what this is.
It's almost like it's trying to draw you into that one, right?
Yeah,
a bit of a trick.
That may be misdirection. We never know.
I like that misdirection. Good.
Okay, so Amazon S3, what is it? So S3, or simple storage service, is an internet scale storage, right? That's when, and you get 11 nines of durability. It's where if you wanted to keep a piece of data and make it globally accessible or just internally accessible for long periods of time, extremely high speed, that's what you would use for. It's object-based storage. It's accessed over HTTP, right? So any standard HTTP protocol client can talk to it, right? Now you've got Amazon EC2 using that. So EC2 will be using that through an API call, as will any instance, let's say on premises. A lot of these services actually are customers using a hybrid model. So one of the examples I'll give here is there's a customer of mine which is actively migrating into the cloud, but as is quite common with a lot of enterprise customers, is they usually figure out we as solution architects work with them to figure out what is a short-term, medium-term, and a longer-term goal that works for their company, right? And this can be things like, hey, are you looking at, like we look at their server portfolio and look at what they have on premises, and sometimes some of that is retired and they just don't need those applications anymore as cost. And then sometimes some of that is re-architected, and we have this entire framework called the Cloud Adoption Framework and the 6 R's of the Cloud Adoption Framework that help customers through that journey, right? As you're going through this, we also discover that customers sometimes like to operate in a hybrid mode to give them enough time to sometimes ramp up in the concepts and really permeate that cloud knowledge across the organization that makes everybody feel comfortable and everybody come along for the journey, right? Because it is important to reskill the people that we have, and certifications, as I mentioned, are a great way to really do this, right?
Awesome.
Cool. So S3 using an Amazon EC2 instance that has an elastic fabric adapter. So elastic fabric adapter is a fairly new AWS service, which is quite exciting for us because it's allowed us to support a lot of newer workloads. So what is elastic fabric adapter? It allows you to attach a high capacity network and compute instance. So let's say you have a random EC2 box and you wanted to sort of supercharge it with a little bit more compute and network. That's what elastic fabric adapter lets you do. Cool. Which means that if you as with most things with AWS, you only pay for what you're using and you only pay for the duration that you're using, which means in that high performance compute application that we're talking about here, let's say after an hour you don't really need the EFA anymore, then you can detach it and you're no longer paying for it.
Okay.
Right. So we're safe on the temporary data because this can do both temporary and primary and permanent data. But the thing that's important here that's kind of eliminating this option for me is that it says it reads data to and from disk, right? And by disk, it'll need some sort of a local file system that's reading and writing files. And that's what kind of breaks this option for me, because S3, as I mentioned, is a great HTTP-based storage, but it's not intended for local mounting or local attachment. right? We have other.
So we'll get rid of
storage.
number 3.
Yeah. So number 3 is off the list.
What about
Right.
EBS?
EBS with provisioned IOPS. So Elastic Block Store or Amazon EBS is a very common volume storage type that our customers use, right? It comes, as we mentioned earlier, in magnetic storage, in SSDs, in like different pricing models for our customers. And with provisioned IOPS, what that allows us to do is, let's say you're running some sort of a high-performance computer or a database application. And you have, with EBS, if you allocate, let's say you get a 30 gig EBS volume, you will get a certain amount of input-outputs for that, right?
Yep.
And you'd be paying based on how much disk you've allocated. And as you grow out that disk, you automatically get more IOPS. But what if you just needed more provisioned IOPS and didn't want to allocate more storage, right? You're happy with 30 gigs, you just add a little bit more performance.
Yeah.
This is where provisioned IOPS comes in, and it's a good option for our customers because they can increase the IOPS that's available to disk without necessarily having to grow out that disk to multiple different sizes, right?
Okay. Okay.
So EBS with provisioned IOPS, you can definitely attach this to EC2, multiple terabytes of storage, right? This is from a feasibility perspective, often option 4 is good. But what bothers me here now is like we have 3 candidates. Right?
We do.
Yeah.
We've only eliminated one.
We've only eliminated one. So far, I'm doing amazing here. You can build it through all of them. So now, from a feasibility, okay, that's those 3 are possible. Let's narrow it down. Let's start.
Let's do it.
Let's start
looking for the highest performance.
Like the highest performance. And as with every AWS question, just be mindful that we're always working towards lowering our customers' cost.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that any solution that you're building on us will always, regardless of if it's mentioned or not, will always have a cost background to it. And that's just a good point in general working in the industry as well.
Yeah.
Right? The application frequently reads and writes data. So with EBS, provisioned IOPS, if you're already using EBS, and with provisioned IOPS, that's an additional cost for provisioned IOPS, right?
Okay.
Whereas with something like Instant Store, which is native and already attached to the EC2 instance, you actually get that for free, right? So from a cost perspective, option 2 is looking better.
Mm-hmm.
With Amazon EFS in max I/O performance mode, something I actually should have picked up on before is EFS is also a type of network storage. So as I mentioned, and in this one, we're saying reading data to and from disk, so we need local storage, so we can eliminate option 1.
Good.
Which means we are left with, ding, 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 candidate 2.
So, just to reiterate, we're locking in number 2, Instant Store.
We can lock in, we can lock in number 2.
66% online agreed with you.
Yes.
Are you ready?
All right, let's look at raise the curtain.
Whew, of course. We're off to a great start.
We're off to a great start. First question done.
Number 2 it was. Should we move on to question 2?
Yes, yeah.
All right, let's see what we've got for you. RDS.
RDS, wow.
Thanks to Jolly, one of our ANZ technical trainers actually, who came up, helped producer John with this question.
Yep.
Let's jump into it. Bikram, your application has a web server in a public subnet and an Amazon RDS database in a private subnet. The RDS database has been configured for automatic updates with a maintenance window specified. What internet or network connectivity must you provide to enable the database update to successfully complete?
Cool. So there's quite a lot in that question, right? There's private subnets, public subnets, there's RDS database, and internet and network connectivity, right?
Yeah.
So as with every AWS question, let's try and pick out the themes here first. So firstly, we have a web server. So just going in, a web server is a HTTP-based server that's probably serving out some sort of traffic outside, right? This is common for most websites. It's sitting in a public subnet, so by definition, a public subnet is something that is accessible from computers outside, which means that it's accessible from all IP addresses. It's intended to be consumed by the general consumers. And then an Amazon RDS database in a private subnet.
Yes.
So before we go into what a private subnet is, I'll explain what RDS is, right? So RDS is a solution which a lot of my customers use, and it's usually their go-to whenever they're either moving a database into AWS or they're just exploring if a database solution is right for them.
Because it's fully managed.
It is fully managed, yes. So Amazon RDS is a fully managed database solution. which is where AWS manages patching, updates, DNS failover, or if you're doing for high availability, read replicas, all of that usual database management stuff is actually managed for you through the console. And you can even automate a lot of this through scripts, and the RDS console itself will automate a lot of this for you, right?
Awesome.
It's grown in what it is over the years. RDS is one of our core services. So what it offers is a couple of flavors. It's actually offers, I think, 6 or 7 flavors. So if you look at it, if you're looking at RDS, you can get RDS MySQL, RDS Postgres, there's RDS SQL Server, RDS Oracle, and obviously RDS Aurora, which is the one that we've built from the ground up, right? All right, so we've covered what a relational database service RDS is. Now the RDS database has been configured for automatic updates, and a maintenance window has been specified. So this is going back to the value that RDS actually brings to the table, which is where you don't have to, or the customer doesn't have to worry about updates and patching.
It's all done.
It's all done for them. Yeah. So they specify a maintenance window, and then they just say, hey, this is when I want my updates to happen. And this is what I think that these are the updates that I approve, or usually an approach when so whenever an update is usually released, some customers like to wait for the update to age before they're comfortable pushing it out to production, right? And that's simply because they want to explore if they want to test it out locally.
Absolutely.
They want to maybe see if anybody has any zero-day exploits or anything that's come up like that. So they would like to age it. So all right, we've determined some sort of an age for automatic updates, and we've specified the maintenance window. So what is a maintenance window? In RDS terms, it's quite simply a window of time when you say, hey, this is a time when I'm comfortable that I can update, right?
Perfect.
Update my database. What internet or network connectivity must you provide to enable the database update to successfully complete, right? So this is where yes, it's an RDS domain question, but they're really testing out our knowledge of both RDS and AWS networking.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So they're asking us, okay, so I want to update my RDS database. Do I have to give it any special network? Let's look at the options that are there. So first, there's place a NAT gateway in a public subnet and update the route tables in a private subnet to use the NAT gateway. Okay.
Wordy answer.
Very wordy
definitely
answer.
Trying to draw us in.
Definitely trying to, the misdirection cue earlier.
Yeah, that's exactly
it's definitely got a few services glued together. And that's not always wrong answer, right? As you're going through, let's say you're doing Cloud Practitioner, SA Associate, SA Pro, there will be answers where you need to glue services together, and that's completely fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's just a heuristic that you can sort of use to say, okay, we need more processing in our head to sort of work through this answer, right? So let's look at placing a NAT gateway in a public subnet. So a NAT gateway is a gateway or is a network address translation gateway that allows something that is in a private subnet to talk to an entity outside, right?
Okay.
It is quite a common industry term, and whenever we use a term gateway in any of our AWS networking constructs, it's actually highly available and managed for you. So what used to be the predecessor of NAT gateway is called a NAT instance, where you have an instance, but then you have to manage failover and all of that, right? So instead, we invented on our customer's behalf and said, hey, let's just build this as a gateway and give you a really managed solution, right?
Awesome.
So from a feasibility perspective, that's there, right? We're going good. You update the route tables. So in networking, a route table is purely just a list of addresses of where to go if you're looking for a destination, right? And a private subnet to use the NAT gateway. So this is just highlighting that, okay, we have the RDS in the private subnet, that's how you would connect, right? This is quite wordy, and in terms of how the answer is structured, this is okay from a feasibility candidate, but I'd really like to look at what the other options are, right?
VPC endpoint.
VPC endpoint for RDS in the VPC. So VPC endpoints are a way for our services to talk to each other when they're in the cloud.
Yep.
So as an example, what I'll give you is one of my customers has a lot of data in S3, right? And they're sort of moving, and they want to talk to this data from instances which are in AWS.
Yep.
S3, as I said, is accessible over HTTP. We've got APIs for it. But what that means is before VPC endpoints existed, they might have to go in through the public internet to access S3. And that's really a waste in terms of network latency and since both of the services are sitting in the same region, why not just give them a secure way to talk to each other, right? So this is where VPC endpoints kind of came in, and again, we invented on our customers' behalf. We constantly like trying to action the feedback that they're actively giving us. So and that's why we came up with VPC endpoints. So VPC endpoints is a secure way for a relational database and other instances to talk to each other when they're in the same region, right? That's what the VPC endpoint is, and RDS is in a VPC. So that will work for any service which communicates with RDS in the VPC, right? But here the question is really asking is public connectivity, or how do you reach out to the internet and actually get those patches, right?
So we can get rid of number 2.
So number 2 is off the list. Set database to publicly available equals yes. So purely from a security point of view, that seems incorrect, because that's just, you should just never do that, period.
Let's not even go there.
Yeah. So forget feasibility. That's like yeah. Those words shouldn't be put together ever, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we're not going to do that. And the fourth option is no special connectivity required, right?
84%
are going for no special
of our viewers are going for number 4.
Right. So, and
I knew this was a trick question.
This was a trick question. So
from the start.
Yeah, they tried to draw us in with the big wordy answer with placing a NAT gateway, and doing a public subnet and doing the route table, but the actual answer is no special connectivity required.
Okay, we're there. Locking in number 4.
Okay.
All right. Phew.
Well,
we made it.
Second question done. I'm feeling good about this now.
And we've got 4 minutes left.
Okay. All right.
All right. Let's quickly. 4 minutes.
Yep.
I think we can get through number 3. What do you reckon?
All right.
Amazon S3. Here we go. Your company maintains not a good start.
Yep.
Your company maintains critical business data in an Amazon S3 bucket. To avoid accidental or malicious deletion of the data, all objects must be regularly copied to another Amazon S3 bucket that is in the same region but belongs to a different AWS account. Got it?
Yep.
How can this copy process be automated with the least effort?
All right. So Amazon Simple Storage Service, I mentioned, is a great service for storing objects. Now, what this question is asking is avoid accidental deletion, prevention of malicious deletion, and all objects must be regularly copied to another Amazon S3 bucket. So this is usually our customers do this for disaster recovery, for high availability, or they just want to have another copy which is completely separate, reduces the blast radius in the event that like their credentials are compromised or something, right? So we really like to create these boundaries, security boundaries for AWS accounts when we're looking at this, right? So let's look at the options that are available to us.
Object lifecycle. We've talked about this a bit in the first 2 episodes.
Yep. So Amazon S3 object lifecycle to copy objects each day. So object lifecycle and lifecycle policies are really rules that you can associate with your objects and your S3 buckets.
Like, please delete these files after 3 days.
Yes, exactly that. That's a perfect example. Or like, please take these files to a colder tier of storage after 30 days or 6 months, because I'm not actually accessing them anymore, right?
So not for copying, which we do need from the question.
Yes. So this is not for copying. This is more for moving objects between tiers, right? We're looking at copying objects between accounts, right?
Okay.
Create an S3 event to trigger a Lambda function whenever an object is created. The Lambda function copies the object between buckets.
A lot of effort there.
A lot of effort. Again, like quite a few services.
But to use your term, feasible.
Feasible. It's definitely feasible. So as objects come in, and Lambda is by definition the event-driven compute model, right? So whenever an object is created, the Lambda function copies these objects between buckets, right?
Okay.
What it's really, the only caveat to this answer is that it's asking us to copy different accounts. So technically, you can do this with like IAM policies, but it gets really complicated.
And the question is
least effort.
Least effort.
Yeah. Yep. So let's look at option 3. Launch an Amazon EC2 instead nightly that runs AWS Sync. So this
could also work.
Feasible, definitely feasible. So we run an Amazon EC2 instance, runs AWS S3 Sync to sync the different buckets together, right?
But that's like once a day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So what if, and it says this is critical business data, so that's mission critical. So you don't mess with that, right? So we really need a robust, highly available and event-driven approach to this, right? And final option is configure same region replication on the bucket, right?
Here we go.
Yeah, so here, now we have like the least effort is definitely being triggered. This is actually a very highly requested feature that our customers have been asking for because they need same region disaster recovery, right?
Yes.
Cross-region replication has existed for a while now for Amazon S3, but now we've got same region replication and we can replicate objects within. So between 2 and 4, they're both feasible, but for the least effort, I'm going with
number 4?
Option 4, yes.
It was, yeah, well, absolutely split between 2 and 4 on the poll. So let's reveal. Question 3, number 4 it is.
All right.
Bikram, do you want to finish us off with a bit of an exam tip of the week?
Exam tip of the week. Well, what I find really helpful, MJ, and what I did in this exam as well, is try to figure out which questions are feasible, right? Which answers are feasible. And then that's usually a good way to eliminate the possible and impossible answers. And then once you have highlighted those ones which you can actually build, you can then go in and look at what the question is really asking for and narrow it down.
Those keywords.
Those keywords, yeah.
Awesome.
That's my tip of the week for this week, yeah.
Fantastic, Bikram. Thank you so much for joining me
Thank
this
you,
week.
MJ.
We'll have to get you back in to come back and do the 5 other questions that we had for you today. Yeah. So that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Guys, please register for Sydney Summit if you are going to be in the area. We'd love to see you there. We will see you next week when we're moving on to our developer, our first episode looking at the developer exam. Thank you so much. See you next week.
See ya.